Awesome.
So the takeaway at the end of all this was, if you just remember, your design system is just a tool. It's to provide your designers with information, tools, and materials to improve their efficiency. That's it. That's all it does. It's not supposed to prescribe design solutions for them.
You've got smart people who design for you. You should let them do their thing.
Absolutely.
Are you ready for some questions?
Sure, fire away.
All right. I am going to bring back folks. Tori, you were intrigued that on the audit, she wanted to know how you did your audit.
Oh, when we did the initial audit,
yeah,
we pulled together all the, the working group got together, we pulled together all the standards that we had, and then we started going through and say, okay, let's go find all the buttons, and then we put all the buttons in one area, in one pile. It was a wall covered with most of this. When we first did it, a lot of the stuff was printed, or we could print out a version of it in PDF. And then we had it stuck to a big wall. We had a big old whiteboard, and then we could group and put stuff together. And that way we could see how many variations we actually had.
Cool.
That's a big white wall and pizza, pretty much.
Pizza is always good. We're starting to get back to where we can do that type of stuff and be in a room together.
We actually, for one of them, one of the reasons was I didn't have that. We did it on Mural. With Mural, the tool with the big whiteboard tool, and then I was able, people could put it in and rearrange things. We did it there, but on a virtual whiteboard tool. I know Figma now has the virtual whiteboard tool. I know a number of the places have. Lucid Chart will also work if you have that. But anything that's got a large anything that's a cloud-based collaborative whiteboarding tool will work for that. Just the idea is that you can get up, everyone can see, and when people find things, they can add and put another one in there. And then it's nice because you see all the buttons together at one time, and you can go, oh, and then you can debate, okay, it needs to be on a fixed grid where it's a 2-column button or a 3-column button, or we want the buttons to always change based on text inside because we're using Flexbox, and the developers can give you feedback then. Again, it's the idea of talking to each other. I know that's a shock. We talk about that all the time. It's shockingly how infrequently we do it within our own companies.
Santosh had asked, how he was talking about the difference between templates and patterns.
So a template is a page pattern versus a template. That's probably a fine shade of meaning that would depend on who you talk to. I think in many instances they're interchangeable terms. Generally, in the past, what I've done this, not with the cars, but with other items, is when I was doing responsive websites, was I would build the components and usually always turn them into almost always a 12-column element that could be stacked, and then you could rearrange the order depending on, and that would change the page, that would alter the priority. For example, let's say the bank was having a promotion, that we had a splash image, and there was a question on the to apply for a credit card, and they were going to run a promotion. I could put a widget dynamically between 2 sections that were earlier on the page to promote it, to move that up the page further, depending on what usability study. So whether or not there's a page pattern or a template, to be honest, I would think that's a matter of definition. To me, I would use the terms almost interchangeably.
Okay, Santosh has another good question.
Okay.
And Louise and I have talked about this at some depth. Shall we start fresh or take material design system as our design system? So Louise has a very wise approach, which is adapt and adopt and adapt. Like, don't start from scratch when you don't have to.
You don't have to. If you work at a decent sized company, there are standards already there. Like we did with the whiteboard, just get them together and then start pulling in what you've already got. The other thing is that there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. I would go along with that completely. There's also a lot of really good stuff. You don't want to throw it away or change just for the sake of changing. There's no reason for it. And the less work you do, the faster this thing will get online and the faster you'll get buy-in from all the other departments. But yeah, I would agree with that. Adapt. It is an iterative process. This is never going to end. It's not a movie where it's okay. Here's the final cut. Here's the theater. Ta-da. This is not going to end. This is just you're going to update and change and move and replace and do stuff all the time. It's supposed to be a living dynamic. It's supposed to be a living dynamic thing.
Tori, do
Which
you
is
want
why you have to constantly monitor the amount of time you spend on it because it's easy. It's fun. So you go, this is great. I'll just do that. I'll work on this, and pretty soon it becomes a full-time job.
Tori, Bob, you had questions in the chat. Do you want to come off mute and ask with your voice or turn on your camera?
I will.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Tori.
Marty, why don't you stop sharing so we can just be the Brady Bunch?
I can stop sharing. I can be the ball. Hold on, let me turn on the gallery. Oh, and now I can see the chat line. Yay. All right.
Yay.
Yay. Much better. Yay.
Right. So my question is, I just started doing some work for a small startup and they have a design system, but the fact of the matter is it doesn't look like everybody wasn't on board, right? So there's not mostly there's multiple instances of things in the code everywhere. And so now I'm kind of curious, like, what is a realistic expectation for a small, when you only have a handful of developers and not a lot of resources, like what can you expect? What level of design system makes sense when you're always pushed for resources, right? And I guess I could start there. I could ask a lot of other questions too, but
it makes a tremendous amount of sense. I think, well, I guess the question is, in your particular instance, is actually determining where the design decisions are being made. Like, in other words, if they've got a design system, let's say one group did a quote design system, there's a pattern like ready UX team, and the developers just start following it, and doing so, there may be a deeper conflict there within, particularly a small organization, because everyone that likes that sense of autonomy. And the question is, first of all, do you have a deeper problem than just the design? In other words, is the variation in the design system a symptom of another problem? That who's actually, is there a struggle to actually control the design? If there's not, then it may be just a matter of getting everybody into the kickoff meeting where we talked about it and said, okay, we're now going to consolidate, and going through that process and getting them all to buy in and understanding that, yes, we all have a vested interest in doing this. Because it sounds like that piece, if the first piece is not the problem, then the second one, it may just be getting everyone in one room at one time and saying, we need to agree on we need to compromise. And compromise is never a good word. We need to collaborate and make sure we've got something that documents we're all doing it the same way.
right. I think it's the collaboration piece that was missing, because, and also just the code part, right? They're not sharing code even amongst themselves, right? So component may be built one way, on one part of the app, and it's built another way in another part of the app. And they know that there's a better way to do it, but they're really not sure how to do it. I think they want to improve, but they're looking to design to do it. And what I'm going to have to come back with is like, it's all our responsibility.
Yes. Well, no, and you're right, but there will probably be, my guess is your ally there may be the dev manager, because he or she will want everything to be phenomenally productive. At that point, then where your design system links with their component library, like look at a system, if your team can code, look at something like Flutter or or I know XD can go straight to React. There are and I would assume Figma is going to have a number of those same sections, but that may really tie things together and save a lot of time.
Thank you.
Welcome. If it helped.
So I have a question, Marty, about templates.
Okay.
So we have kind of a semi-mature design system where we've added, in addition to design, we've added HTML, CSS guidance to each component and React code to
Okay.
each component. So it's getting there. It's not fully there, but one of the components that's being discussed about being created is a template component. And we're discussing kind of the same thing that you were putting up. Where does it fit in the hierarchy of atomic design? If we're considering also organizing by atomic design. Right now, we're, kind of a hybrid, like you were sharing also. So could a template be a component that a developer could use or a designer could use? And, if so, of course they can use it, but where does it fit in the hierarchy? Is it a molecule? Because it's just the format of the page.
No, a template.
It's not the page itself. It's not a page template per se. It's just the shell, if you will.
Right. Well, no, but that's all a template is. If you go back and look at the atomic design, there's specifically a template is a wireframe of empty containers where the components are then plugged. So if you have atoms, molecules, and components, think of templates as boxes that are over here. These go into that to make the real page, if that makes sense. So they're not in a, even though perhaps I made a mistake, and in fact, it may be a flaw, with all due respect to Brad, in the description of atomic design, because it looks like organisms fitted, that templates are above it, when in reality they almost exist side by side.
Right.
Because you can plug things in here and then go. So if you were to redo the diagram, you'd almost have 1, 2, 3 into a template, and then that then makes the page, if that makes sense. That's my way of interpreting it, which is the reason for what I do, because I didn't have that template. I didn't have any. We moved it back down to the beginning where I used a 12-column. That 12-column grid became my basically one big underlying foundation template, and it went and because everything had to fit in that. If that so, does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other specific questions about design systems?
I do. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I have a question. So I work for the city, and it's like 42 businesses all lumped under an umbrella.
Wow.
Yeah. So because when you think about it, the police department, and they call them departments, but they're businesses. The police are different from the garbage pickup, or different from the arts department, right? And we've had a custom design proliferation that we need to pull back on, because people think custom design solves all their problems, and then they lose their association with the city, things like that. So, but when thinking about the design system, and we're going, hopefully bring people back into a standard design as well, visual design as well. But when I do have these customs, there will be customs, the airport, the convention center, the library, perhaps, because just how big it is, and it's a single intention user. They go to the library. They're not planning on, also finding out how to get their garbage picked up that day or whatever.
Right.
Do you do subsystems for them? Do you?
Actually, the one I'm the one person that can probably actually help you with this.
Okay.
Because what my design system is built on, what I lovingly refer to as we call it internally alpha motors. It is a white label version, because then if it is defining best practices and strong recommendations that we then give to the different OEMs. And we have designers.
Can I pause you there for a second? Give a little more background about what you do, in case people didn't remember from the very beginning slide.
Okay. If you get into your car, how many of you, okay, I expect to see all the hands. How many of you have Sirius XM radio? Yes, in your car. or have seen it in the past in the car.
I've seen it.
Every time, or how many FM radio in your car, any kind of radio. Every time you get into a car, that head unit with the radio is control a brand and layout that is completely controlled by the manufacturer of that car. That is their brand. They all have different screen sizes. Even if with a Jeep, even within a trim level, there's an 8-inch screen, a 10-inch screen, a 12-inch screen. They have different aspect ratio. Everything about them is different. But Sirius XM radio has to work in all of them. And I have features and stuff that have to be communicated and built into each of those formats that we want to behave in a certain way. That if you get into a rental car, if you've never driven before, you can go to Sirius XM and you know there's going to be a browse feature. You know there's going to be a direct tune button where you can put in the number, those kind of things. But all of them have to be completely different brands, but they all have to be, as Mr. Miyagi would say, same but different, which is kind of the situation you're in. So what happens is we built a white label that in your case would be the quote basic City of San Antonio core label.
The core, yeah.
And
That's
then
cool.
so now here's your core label, and then you let each of the departments, as they go, set up guidelines with these are the things you can customize and these are the things you can't. And the things that they can't customize, it's like a Vegas dealer. Back up, let them go. They want to make it purple, great. If that, you know, what the photography styling, what it is that you've decided that it's going to keep the brand, make them efficient, but give them that sense of control and identity that they want, that's going to be, and then have a governance system where they can come back and show you what they've done, where you can go back and give feedback on how they control it. But yeah, but I can assure you that the designers at BMW are very different than the designers at Ford, and have a very different view of how things should work and how they want the stuff. And it's their car and it's their brand experience, and they want things. So they're both using Sirius XM, but they want their version of Sirius XM that looks like their brand.
But how to find a specific show or channel, that's something that you say, no, it always has to work this way, because
we say that, whether or not they do it is an entirely
but like in Louise, in your case, so for example, with a city, what I think is there's benefit to standardizing on things like where the search box is, because people
Yes.
who live in the city or go to city websites or even go to the Visit San Antonio site and the San Antonio Airport site, it would be a benefit to the user for the search box to be in the same place and use the same pattern and behave the same way.
And that's where you will take the term, the hold on loosely, as just start singing that in your head, because that could be possibly be your thing. You need a t-shirt for it, as a matter of fact.
She would be insane that she didn't already know how to do that.
It's a white label, and then define the customization rules in the documentation. You're allowed to change this, and this. You're not allowed to change this, and most importantly, because it's a design system, why you can't change it. Often, if they know why they can't change it, they go, oh, like Susan just explained it. It needs to be in the same place because they're going to see the logo, they're going to go and they're going to expect it to be here. Something else that you might look at for examples, look at really large university sites that have all the different, there's the business schools and the law school, and they all run like their own brands, and find some really good ones there that might help. That might help you more guidelines of how much change to.
Yeah, it's finding the good ones, because what the city has done in the past to say, oh, we're going to look at these 10 different cities that are like us a little bit, and then, oh, we'll do it like this city. And I'm like, why would we do it like that city if they're not doing a good job either? There's no checking on if it's a good job or not. And but it's really changing. UX is becoming top of mind, or in the city. So
on that part, it's so awesome. But then there's always that part of me that goes, be careful what you ask for. Because now I'm like, oh, it's actually going to be my responsibility now. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I whined about this for years that they didn't listen, and now they're listening all the time. And now,
yeah.
And Twitter, God bless the people on Twitter who will tell you instantly every time you make a mistake.
right, yeah. When you're successful, then you could create a backlog and you can't get to everything, then everybody else starts doing, and then you have to bring it back all together. Yeah, I've been through this all
Oh, yes,
several times now.
totally understand. Totally
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
I want to shout out Bob, just put a really great link in the chat. That's a design systems repo.
Oh, what a great link. I don't think I've seen that, which shows what happens. I've been trying to build radios. Huh?
This is why we get together.
This is
Yeah.
why we get
I love getting you people together and talking about this
It's
stuff.
great because it has, IBM material. It has all of the well-known ones, but it also has the smaller, agency companies that
Yeah,
have
it's
design
it's
systems.
interesting to see a lot of times when you look at these, though, that to me, that a lot of them again become very advanced pattern libraries, as opposed to, it's really important when you do this to put the why. Give a link to the test results that showed you tested this and it would go, because a year from now, no one will remember why you picked this thing, and this will, that documentation is important. You put in why you're doing it. That I generally, almost all the time, it's, why is it this shade of blue? My designers don't care because Marty said so. Marty thought that shade was pretty. That doesn't really count. I mean,
that's not going to work with Tori and Louise, though.
Yeah, Marty thought that was pretty.
Well, one of the encouraging things we're finding is when we have the opportunity, so part of it's opportunity to explain to somebody why it needs to be this way or that way for user experience, then they go, oh, okay, I'm in, and what we've come to the conclusion, and this sounds, people may not think that really this happens in the city, is that our employees want to do the right thing. They just need to know what the right thing is.
Yeah.
From music, so they're really looking for it and they want to make that, but a lot of times they don't have the confidence to do a decision if they can't support it. So then they do what they've been told.
It was funny. I was just looking at we're doing a lot of work for the Google, that now Google has a new Android automotive operating system that they're putting in a number of cars. And in the design system they were showing different content types. And it was funny because they have if it is an actual object, it has square corners. If it is a container, it has 4-pixel slightly rounded. If it is tappable, it's completely rounded, like a button that they're, so the level of round on the corners wasn't just a design. It actually very quickly taught the user the interaction that went with that particular. And when you're driving in a car, I've got a lot of the infamous NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration, has all kinds of guidelines about glancing away, and you have to, and we have to keep all that stuff. You can't glance away because it's just a glance and you have to get back to the road. What I'm now looking forward to, that I'm going to have to start working, in heads-up displays and autonomous cars, which is, what am I going to do with my driving guidelines when there's no one driving? Yeah. That'll be a new thing for me. that'll be different. It's fascinating to see how they incorporated something to make something truly glanceable. Now, if you're building a website like you are, glanceability is not that big a deal for you because chances are they're there to research or look for something immediately, as opposed to I'm dancing down on a phone. And that gets back to really understanding and knowing your users on how things are going to be important. But I think for you, the white label and clear guidelines of and give them enough guidelines that they can change. Yeah. That they feel that, that there's a state, and then just don't be hyper prescriptive, and then you won't have to deal with people breaking your standards all the time.
Oh, they're going to do that anyway.
Well, of course they are. Of course they are.
We are almost 20 minutes over.
Okay, sorry.
It's a wonderful conversation. I didn't want to interrupt it. I'll post Marty's presentation and then the Q&A video as 2 separate videos after this. If you want to come back and look at it again or send it to people that you know. I don't want to interrupt the flow if you're not through talking, but I just wanted to let you know if you have other things that you need to go do on your Friday. And it's June already. Oh my God.
I know.
How is that even possible?
I have an easy email address. It's just marty.gold@siriusxm.com. Feel free to write, reach out on LinkedIn, say hi. I'd love to know how all this stuff turns out. This, you know, yes, we're hiring, just plug. Everybody's hiring. Anyway, thank you so much. I had a great time. Please, I'd love to stay in contact with all of you. Sign out on LinkedIn, and we will. And if you need anything or have questions, if you think later, don't hesitate to ask.
And feel free to tell me what topics you would find helpful. Santosh gave me a good one, which is how do you measure the success of a user experience? I think that one should definitely be bubbling up on the list.
That's a good one.
Maybe Essen can help me with that, Marty.
That's a good one. No, I'll come. Yeah. Well, now I know, because now I'll have to be here, because now I know everybody. So I'll be here.
Thank you so much, Marty. This was fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm on the fence about whether I should do next month or not, because it's July 4th weekend. So it'll either be July 2nd or August.
Okay.
But send me your ideas for what you want to talk about, and we will do it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye-bye.